Turmoil in the tech industry. Two platforms meant to transform our lives, now in free fall. Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, plunging the platform into chaos. Advertisers running for cover, half the employees fired, and the rest struggling to keep the train on the tracks.
People are running wild with the verification badge.
I just don't understand how anyone thinks that this is a good idea.
The credibility of Twitter has taken a complete nosedive.
Plus, the crash of crypto, the stunning death of the FTX cryptocurrency exchange.
It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so.
How it went from billions to bankrupt in just days.
I'm not surprised that this happened. No rules, no laws in it. It's like the Wild West.
Does it feel illegal? We'll see. It certainly feels immoral.
We're trapped in a dysfunctional relationship with crypto.
It was supposed to be the future. What went wrong?
I'm Jake Ward in San Francisco. You have seen the headlines, FTX, Twitter. In these separate cases, the disruptive potential of tech is turning out to be a lot more fragile and more dangerous than we realized. Let's start with FTX. It was a place to buy and trade cryptocurrency, like a stock exchange for digital money. And it was crypto's icon of legitimacy. And then the whole thing collapsed in days. Now, you may not believe in cryptocurrency. It's not backed by any insurance. It doesn't make any goods or services possible. It's not real in any traditional sense. But what's important is that millions of people, including the top minds of Wall Street and a long line of celebrities, put billions into this dream. A new financial world without borders or regulations. Well, what they got was a world of illusions and no safety net.
Remember the Super Bowl where celebrities sold crypto hard?
FTX is the safest and easiest way to buy and sell crypto. It's the best way to get in the game.
Remember they made fun of your reluctance?
It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so.
Well, behind all of that was this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried. He looked like your childhood video game buddy, an MIT physics grad who slept on beanbags and wore cargo shorts everywhere. SBF, as he's known, was once an astonishingly successful whiz-kid investor. And when he went all in on cryptocurrency, hedge fund managers and celebrities alike clamored to get in on what he was building. His company, FTX, offered the chance to buy and sell cryptocurrency. And it went from being worth, well, nothing, to more than $30 billion in the space of just a few years. He was a philanthropist and top political donor, giving $27 million to one Democratic PAC alone. And although he moved his company to the Bahamas out of U.S. jurisdiction, he told NBC News he was in favor of regulation.
Every day that goes by without oversight, there's just more risk for customers. There's more risk in the industry.
Then it was revealed that SBF had let another fund he ran borrow billions of FTX customers' money without their permission, and there was the crypto equivalent of a run on the bank. Billions went out the door overnight until FTX locked customers out. SBF resigned and filed for bankruptcy, tweeting, "I was shocked to see things unravel the way they did."
Hey everyone.
Finance YouTuber Julian Figueroa is one of thousands of customers with their money stuck and possibly gone.
It feels like a gut punch and it feels like a betrayal.
But it's the upper echelons of Wall Street and Silicon Valley, the people who swarmed SBF as he was starting out, that have the most to explain. The top minds at hedge funds and VC firms turned out to have bet big and bet wrong. Now, FTX says in bankruptcy filings it's been contacted by at least 3 federal agencies, including the Department of Justice, which had no comment. The company and its celebrity endorsers are facing lawsuits, and other forms of cryptocurrency have lost value as panic sets in. It is a crisis for the industry and reveals how little it took to seduce every level of the financial markets with the promise of riches and revolution.
The new CEO of FTX is criticizing SBF for making erratic and misleading statements. Now, SBF did not respond to our request for an interview, but he is not keeping quiet. One of his recent exchanges was a series of bombshell admissions about what he was up to in direct messages with Vox's Kelsey Piper. In these exchanges that Piper posted online, she asked, quote, "You said a lot of stuff about how you wanted to make regulations just good ones. Was that pretty much PR as well? SBF responded, yeah, just PR. F regulators. They make everything worse. They don't protect customers at all. SBF also said his biggest single F-up was filing Chapter 11, and that everything would be around 70% fixed right now if I hadn't. Helping me to break down the impact of this meltdown is CNBC technology reporter Kate Rooney, and with me in studio, Elizabeth Lopato, senior reporter at The Verge. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. So this court filing, the new FTX CEO says in it, never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. From compromised systems, integrity, and faulty regulatory oversight boards to the concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated, and potentially compromised individuals. This situation is unprecedented. I mean, this is not even a critique. This is a condemnation. Kate, let's go to you first. What happened here? This is a CEO who, of course, helped restructure Enron. We hear comparisons to it. And Lehman Brothers. I want to know from you, is this a comparable case?
So John Ray has a ton of credibility. He said in that filing that he's been doing this for 40 years. He worked on the Enron case and restructuring that company. And the idea that this is the worst he's ever seen carries a ton of weight, and it really speaks to how muddy and how messy this FTX situation will be to unwind. So if you think back to Lehman Brothers, what happened with Bear Stearns and the great financial crisis, there are so many parallels to the issues that happened at FTX, but it seemed like there were not a ton of experienced, credible executives, at least at FTX in hindsight, and that's part of the issue here that John Ray points out. He says it was a young and experienced group of executives. And to use the Lehman example again, it is very similar, but you add on top of that the complication of adding cryptocurrencies that backed a lot of these things. This was a private company. There was not a lot of transparency behind the scenes. So John Ray really has his work cut out for him, and he's been pretty critical, as you mentioned, Jake, of Sam Bankman-Fried and his leadership style here, and really tried to make it clear that at this point, Sam has nothing to do with the company. He said, listen, he is not speaking on behalf of FTX. We've now taken the reins here and are trying our best to get money back to our creditors and back to customers in a lot of cases.
Quickly distancing himself, obviously, from the former CEO, and amazing to imagine that this, inexperienced group, as he called it, could have come up with money that now creates a crisis that rivals Lehman Brothers, as you mentioned. Now, Kate, also there is, of course, this new lawsuit against the celebrity endorsers of it. It names Steph Curry, it names Naomi Osaka, it names, of course, Larry David, who appears in that famous Super Bowl commercial. Tell me a little bit about the role of these celebrity endorsers in getting things going as far as they did, and in getting so many people in over their head.
Sure. So that was part of the reason a lot of people saw FTX as credible. It was becoming a household name. They bought the naming rights to FTX Arena in Miami. So they spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money on getting those either brand ambassadors from high-profile athletes or getting their name out there. And that is one thing I'm hearing over and over from people who are close to the situation, who say that is either why they invested in the first place, because they saw some of those celebrity endorsements or the endorsements of big high-profile Silicon Valley firms like SoftBank and Sequoia. They said those guys must have done their diligence, so it seemed like a safe bet. And not to mention, he really had a seat at the table in Washington. But it goes towards this idea of Sam Bankman-Fried having that credibility. Celebrities certainly added to that, Tom Brady among them. So you had the brand ambassadors in one bucket, and then folks like Tom Brady and Giselle were also investors. So they're on the hook here as well in terms of the bankruptcy filing and how people are waiting to get their money back. There's some big names in there, and it really did add to Sam Bankman-Fried's allure and his credibility.
It's really an incredible lineup of people all choosing to trust one another that seems to have helped set this in motion. Now, Elizabeth Lopato, Liz, SBF was, a star of the industry, but he, of course, also had all of these quirks, these character traits, these attributes around his life, living in the Bahamas and constantly in shorts and living, in theory, with the other executives at the mansion that served as their HQ. So should we have known in some way? Were there red flags about this person that we should have paid attention to?
Well, you know, I think finance is incredibly complex, and I am often skeptical of people who are very young in finance, only because they haven't necessarily lived through a recession or a downturn. And so one of the things that we saw here is that FTX was making money, you know, last year during the crypto boom. But I don't know that they were ready for the bust. And if you look back at some of the tweets that people were making, you know, this was supposed to be an arbitrage firm, but they were trading based on narrative. And so that mismatch, I think, is something that someone who is sophisticated, you know, should have seen. That said, like, I think a lot of retail investors were really courted with like the fear of missing out, you know, the idea that if you don't get in early, you're not going to get in at all. And that is sort of a crypto rallying cry. It's still early. And, you know, you make the most profits if you're in early, so you better get in now.
It is really amazing to imagine, right, that FOMO and narrative was really what kept this thing going as opposed to the hard math. I mean, this brings me, Kate, to a question I want to ask you. I mean, we know now that certainly FTX is in touch with a number of regulatory agencies, including the Department of Justice. If regulation comes into play here, do you think it prevent this sort of thing from happening in the future?
That is one of the big questions, Jake, and I can't understate that enough. I mean, Sam had a seat at the table. He was really seen as the credible poster child of this industry in Washington and for consumer protection as well. One of the big things he was known for earlier this year was bailing out other companies that had fallen into bankruptcy. So he had a lot of trust in Washington. Folks I'm talking to, lobbyists in D.C., have said the chances of something passing soon based on that are very, very slim because lawmakers are now way more cautious to trust leaders in the industry. And they do want to study this harder than they would have been a few months ago. So that is one industry impact. And then the consumer trust as well. That's been really damaged. And it calls into question this industry going forward. How many people are going to be willingly investing in cryptocurrencies when they don't feel like they can trust some of these big centralized parties? And then to the question of regulation in the U.S., this company was partly really based in the U.S., but headquartered in Bahamas. There was part of the business that was in Antigua. So part of the issue was what they call regulatory arbitrage, that the rules are different depending on where you go. They seem to have used that to their advantage here, gotten around some of the rules, and then it was also a private company. So that bookkeeping doesn't necessarily have to be public, and they absolutely benefited from that in this case, although you would think some of the big investors would have done their homework and seen that because they did have access to that. But it's one of the issues here, and regulators are looking way, way more closely than they would have been a couple weeks ago.
Undoubtedly drawing incredible scrutiny at this point. And Elizabeth, final thought here, you know, we had the CEO of a big rival cryptocurrency exchange saying this morning on CNBC that this was essentially, this incident will set us back a bit, he said, but then the industry will become healthier. Last thoughts here. I mean, is this the end of crypto, or is this just an adolescent moment we can get around?
Well, I think we want to distinguish between the exchanges and crypto as a whole, because there are crypto advocates who do decentralized finance and don't engage in centralized exchanges. That said, exchanges are really important for on-ramps and off-ramps if you're trying to get from dollars into Bitcoin or back. So I think that the exchanges are probably coming under a lot of scrutiny because that was a fundamental part of what FTX was. But I mean, for me, like, the main question still is, where did the money go?
Yeah, where is that money?
Where's the money?
That is absolutely correct. I mean, the extraordinary outflow of money and the total mystery surrounding where it is right now is certainly the thing that everyone's going to be watching. The Verge's Elizabeth Lopatto and our own CNBC's Kate Rooney. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. I want to turn now to NBC's senior business analyst, Stephanie Ruhle. Steph, it's easy to cast this as a case of inexperienced everyday investors getting scammed by Super Bowl ads, but that's not accurate, is it? I mean, tell me how some of the biggest names in business and politics got caught up in this.
Not even close, Jake. And while lots of big names, big titans, are kind of quietly moving back, saying, Sam who, never knew that guy, it's a big fat lie. This guy, this company were embraced. Talk about the amount of magazine covers he was put all over the last year. But I'm talking also the biggest investors, Sequoia, Lightspeed, BlackRock. We are talking about Titan investors, many of whom weren't traditionally in the crypto space. SoftBank, a lot of older established companies who sort of looked at this young guy and said, he's a wonder kid, get him in here. They didn't do the due diligence, and the same could be said for lawmakers. Many said he is going to be this Democratic kingmaker. He was a huge donor. He met with Nancy Pelosi. He met with Mitch McConnell. He had meetings at the White House. You know, Gary Gensler himself, the head of the SEC, who many people are looking towards now, he met with Sam. So for people now to say, oh, you know, this was a big blow up, but it's just the crypto bros, it's the meme stock traders that are really out in the cold here. Oh, no. Some of the biggest names in business and politics and media were wrapped into this. They want to hide that now, but that's the truth.
Stephanie Rule with incredible insight on just how far this guy's reach really was. Thank you so much, Steph.
Thank you.
Again, we have reached out to Sam Bankman-Fried for comment, but we have not heard back. Still ahead, inside Twitter's meltdown under Elon Musk. Where is the chaos there headed? We'll be right back. Turning now to the meltdown at Twitter. Elon Musk's time at the top has been marked by chaos, layoffs, impersonations, and concerns that the platform simply is no longer safe and secure. So how did we go from the high-minded notion of a digital town square to what Musk said it should not become, a hellscape of fraud and abuse?
Twitter was supposed to be a sort of dispatch system for humans, inspired by founder Jack Dorsey's childhood fascination with police radio chatter.
They're always talking about where they're going, what they're doing, and where they currently are. And that is where the idea for Twitter came.
Today, it's how we find out about evacuation orders and road closures. It's a public square, the birthplace of revolutions and conspiracy theories. It's a geopolitical channel where world leaders communicate and the world's media finds trusted sources. But all of that could now be falling apart.
I've never seen anything like it, actually, in my covering of all of Silicon Valley for 25 years.
Elon Musk, with millions of followers and openly frustrated by Twitter's efforts to patrol what gets posted, put in a $44 billion bid to buy the company. Then, after several attempts to back out, Musk reluctantly took ownership in October, and the trouble began almost immediately. Within 2 weeks, he'd fired half the staff and thousands of contractors, so many people that former employees openly worried the platform could collapse. One fired engineer calling on his colleagues to disobey, to protest, and to quote tweet Elon when he lies on Twitter. For more than a decade, Twitter's free blue verified checkmark allowed us to know at a glance that an account was authentic. Musk blew that up, replacing it with a plan to let anyone pay $8 a month for that same symbol. No verification needed.
What I'm trying to achieve is to try to get as many people payment verified as possible.
That opened the door to a carnival of impersonations.
People are running wild with the verification badge.
Accounts claiming to be celebrities, politicians, companies sending out bogus tweets. A fake LeBron James asked to be traded from the Lakers. Nestle apologized for its water use. Pepsi conceded to Coke, and American Girl dolls got some very off-brand historical context. And there were real-world consequences. When someone pretending to be pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly said it would make insulin free, the company's stock price dipped, costing it billions. Now, none of those claims were real, but they appeared to be real underneath that verified checkmark. And Senator Ed Markey told Musk, fix your companies or Congress will.
I just don't understand how anyone thinks that this is a good idea.
Those fake accounts have since been suspended, but experts say Twitter's reputation is on the line. And now, just weeks after Musk took over, Twitter faces multiple threats to its very existence.
Let's focus now on Twitter's future with people who have been closely following all the latest developments. I'm joined now by Zoe Schiffer, managing editor at Platformer, and also Ryan Mack, technology reporter for the New York Times. Zoe, I want to start with a piece that you put out that actually showed an internal document that showed that Musk had actually been warned by a team about the risks of changing the verification system. You write, and you're quoting the document here, motivated scammers and bad actors could be willing to pay to leverage increased amplification. And then impersonation of world leaders, advertisers, brand partners, election officials, and other high-profile individuals represented another top risk, according to this document. So it seems that Musk really was warned that this might happen, but he went ahead anyway. I mean, how clear was this ahead of time that this would be the result?
It couldn't have been more clear. I mean, this was a 7-page list of risks and recommendations, ways to change the new Twitter Blue and paid verification before it rolled out so that it wouldn't harm consumers to this extent. As it stands, Musk and his team refused to make any of the changes that would delay the launch. And so now the document really reads as a description of recent events.
And Zoe, I'm just sort of wondering, I mean, you've been following this so closely. Tell me a little bit about who is left of these teams that are making predictions about the risks, that are looking at content moderation. I mean, how much insulation is there now at Twitter against those sorts of threats?
Yeah, the teams have really been gutted. You know, the top of the trust and safety team is gone. We've seen content moderators who were largely fired in the past few weeks. And so now we're looking at a really different version of the company than we had even just a couple months ago. We know right now that Twitter is going out and trying to rehire some folks. They're trying to make new offers to people who are willing to join this new hardcore Twitter that Elon Musk is trying to create. But as it stands, we have a very bare bones team at the company.
And Ryan Mack, I want to know a little bit about the nature of Elon Musk as a leader here. You wrote, along with Kate Conger and Mike Isaac on November 15th, that Mr. Musk's team has been asked to comb through messages in Twitter's internal chat platform and make a list of employees who are insubordinate. They also sorted through employees' tweets looking for criticism. Those deemed rule breakers received emails around 1:30 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday notifying them that they were fired. I mean, tell me a little bit about this. This guy is supposed to be a free speech absolutist. What is the pattern both here at Twitter and at prior companies when it comes to this sort of thing?
Well, it appears that, there's going to be no free speech, within his companies. He talks about it publicly, saying Twitter should be a free speech platform, but, it operates quite differently when you're working for him. And right now you're seeing, if anyone is dissenting openly against him, whether that's on Slack, which is the main internal communication tool at Twitter, or even publicly with these public tweets. Twitter employees have been encouraged in the past to tweet about their workplace. Like it's a big part of their culture there. And these employees are now running up against essentially a new owner who is not happy with that. And he is taking them to task and kind of leading with fear at this point. And, it's unfortunate to see. We saw, about 24 people earlier this month get fired for that, and it's been quite chaotic.
Well, let me ask you this, Ryan. I mean, based on what you know of his behavior at other companies, I mean, I just can't help but think, what is it like to work at SpaceX? What is it like to work at Tesla? Have we seen this kind of thing before?
We have. I mean, he's known to fire people that, can't get things done for him or dissent against him almost on the spot. I mean, we just ran a story of 8 SpaceX employees who spoke up, who submitted an open letter to management about his behavior at SpaceX and on Twitter. And they were essentially fired earlier this year. So, it's a common kind of pattern we're seeing across SpaceX, Tesla, and now Twitter.
Zoe, I want to understand the reaction inside Twitter to this midnight email sent out really on the eve of, I mean, the guy was just about to go appear in a Delaware court, Elon Musk was, and yet he somehow had time to put out this extreme hardcore pledge that he was asking employees to sign or to get fired. What has the reaction been inside Twitter to that? I mean, who is left and will they stay?
Yeah, right now we know that employees are incredibly fearful and very demoralized. I think there are, of course, a few managers who have stood by Elon Musk and are trying to rally their own teams right now. But for the most part, the people we are talking to are really trying to weigh their options. Do we say yes? Do we sign up for Twitter 2.0 and be part of this new hardcore environment that Elon Musk is trying to create and stay in this very chaotic environment? Or do we leave? Do we take the 3 months of pay and try and find another job? But the other complicating factor is that right now the hiring market in the tech industry is the worst that it's been for a very long time. And so I think there's a lot of fear.
Real fear and real existential threats. Zoe Schiffer of Platformer and Ryan Mack of the New York Times, thank you so much for being here. Let's get some more perspective here on the impact of the chaos at Twitter with our own senior reporter, Ben Collins. Ben, Musk said he did not want Twitter to become a, quote, free-for-all hellscape where anything can be said with no consequences. Well, let's talk about some consequences here. I mean, what do you think we lose and what are we risking as a society if Twitter continues to melt down?
Well, you know, I think Elon has a very different view of what Twitter is used for most people and really the impact it has in the world. If it does melt down, it's harder for Ukrainian soldiers to get the message out there about what's actually going on over there. It's harder for protesters to get their message out there. It's harder for regular average people to let people know what's happening in the world in real time. If it becomes a thing where, as he wants it to make it happen, $8 gets you access to speech, then the people without the $8 are not going to have that access to that speech. So while there is this big thing about brand safety and Mario giving the finger and all this stuff, all these crazy things that happened in the last few weeks, the people that it affects most are the people who have the most to lose. That's protesters. That's people without a voice otherwise. And if Twitter goes away, their ability to speak freely goes away with it.
NBC's Ben Collins. Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, we want to note here, we've reached out to Elon Musk and Twitter for comment, but we have yet to hear back. And that is it for tonight's look at a historic moment in tech. But we will, of course, continue to track these two stories and the ongoing turmoil in the industry on NBC News Now. I'm Jake Ward in San Francisco. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.